Oh, there's a house in here.
Yeah, we're coming up. This is Almanac Pond Road, and we're coming up to Windswept Cranberry Bog. Here's a, yeah, this is
a nice little path. We'll go
Yeah,
in
here's
there.
a nice little path.
Oh, good. This will be perfect then.
This is where we'll finish.
So this is an oak. This is a white oak, and you can tell from the shape of the tree, the fact this is a slightly upland area, but as you look at all the ferns around it, you get an idea of the moisture content of the soil. So we're right here. This is the edge of sort of the back part of Windswept Cranberry Bog off the Pulpus Road, and there's this wonderful little trail here. Now, where we are, again, this is the so-called hidden forest part of the island. And you'll see most of these trees here are tupelo, very straight trunk with very fine horizontal branches on it. It's the tree that gives Nantucket its sort of color in the fall. You know, it's, as you can see, they're sort of beginning, well, actually they're sort of going by now. But the three main trees that we'll find in here are the tupelo or the black gum. This is a swamp red maple over here, the one that's sort of going off in all different directions, and there's another one down here. And then you'll see this trail. This is typical of the trails that crisscross this whole area.
You could actually pick wild blueberry.
Oh yeah. As I say, there are three native plants to North America. We have all three here on Nantucket: the blueberry, cranberry, and the fox grape. And blueberries, it's mostly the low bush blueberries that are all over the moors and so on. But also in these wet areas, we have quite a few stands of these high bush blueberries.
Do they taste different?
I think they do. I think that the high bush are a little bit sweeter, and I'm not sure if that's just a personal, whatever. But I think they're a little bit plumper, and they tend to be a little bit sweeter. Let's see. This is a white oak. We have white oaks, black oaks. There's some red oak out here, but those are the oak trees. Most of the oaks and so on are in these higher areas. You notice that as we go down, even just a few feet in elevation into some of the wetland areas here, that the tree species change, and it's because of, they're specifically adapted to growing in these wetland areas. We have over 70 different species of ferns here on Nantucket. So now, we're in a wetland area. This is all sort of swampy and marsh, and this is the basic plant. It's a sphagnum moss. It's an amazing plant. It grows from the top, dies from the bottom, and this plant is responsible for many of the very unique characteristics of these wetland areas here. What happens is that as the plant sort of decays back on itself, it forms beds of peat. And peat is, basically organic material that hasn't completely decomposed. It's also because of these peat beds, the water will accumulate. It will form these little puddles, these marshes and bogs around here. And over time, as the plant matter decays back on it, it becomes very acid. Just to give you an idea, normal pH is 7. A glass of orange juice, which we would normally consider pretty acid, is 5. This has these bogs in here have a pH as low as 3. It's about 10,000 times more acid than a normal pH of 7. So again, it encourages a unique group of plants are allowed to grow in here because of this plant. The plant is like a huge sponge. It can absorb up to 25 times its weight in water. And what happens, you get a day like this, or a week like this where we've had a lot of rain, it just sort of soaks it all up, and then it will release it slowly over time. There are 5 sort of running streams that I've discovered around here, and they're all because of this plant. As it releases the water, you have some of these running stream. So this is one of the basic plants, and you can tell as you get down the vegetation changes. That's a swamp red maple, as is this here. All the green, by the way, in the plants are lichens, and all of these plants, the ferns and so on, are adapted to growing in these wetland areas. They're just fascinating, the plants that you find in here.
Now where does this trail go to?
This trail will eventually go over to Stump Pond and then to windswept cranberry bog. It's all part of...
How long is it?
This trail is maybe well, it connects to it. There's another loop of trail, so depending on where you're going, it's from here over to windswept, maybe half a mile, a little less than that. But there's a whole system of trails in just this one property. I would say probably 3 or 4 miles of trails. We have an easterly edge trail that goes around Stump Pond, goes over to Heath House, the ranger station. There's a loop trail that goes in the center of Stump Pond, and then this one sort of connects to it. So.
And you said, how many miles of trails could you walk?
Just in this one property, there are probably 3 or 4 miles of trails.
In total?
And all over the moors, there are more than 20 miles of trails. 20 miles of trails.
You know, 15 years ago when you took this job, before that you were a very enterprising type of person.
Yeah.
You don't see yourself going back to that? I mean, you did real estate, you did businesses.
Yeah.
Now you do this. Well, why? What happened that led you to just do this kind of?
I think it's a combination of things. I mean, I've always loved being outside. I mean, even as a kid, I remember growing up in Ohio. I used to love to walk the train tracks. I mean, I would walk for miles in the country, and I would have to force myself to turn around and go back. And so I've always loved being outside, being in nature. I've always been sort of curious about nature. I enjoy being alone. I mean, I'm good at entertaining myself. I don't need a lot of social activity. So it just seems like an ideal situation for me to do this. It allows me the free time to play my guitar, to do the things that I like to do, to read, to explore nature, to learn about it, and to just be a part of the environment. One of the other things I do, I'm one of the 5 land bank commissioners, and I think I won't say training, but my experience here as the ranger has really made me ideally suited for it, because I know I won't say every deer trail, but I know a lot of the deer trails. I know every road. I've walked all the beaches. I know all the ponds, and I have a picture of Nantucket. I mean, I see how different ecosystems interact with each other, and I think that that's been helpful as far as trying to figure out which properties, and there are certain properties that bring to the attention of the land bank that this is something that.
But you're more interested in conservation than you are in
oh, absolutely.
selling and buying real estate.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you're not doing that anymore. What do you? This
No.
is your last week this job ends this week.
Well, no, actually, I stay on for the foundation half-time during the winter. This is new.
But you don't stay in the house.
No, I don't. No, I move back to my house in Surfside. And then what I do for the winter out here, for years, I had a summer job and a winter job. This was strictly seasonal.
Right.
And I was a landscaper. I painted houses. I opened scallops. I did all the, all the usual things that we do to survive out here in the wintertime. And also for the last 10 years, I've worked at Highline during the wintertime in the ticket office.
Right. Yeah, sure you
So it's been sort of a nice yin and yang. Highline is a much more social thing. I get to see people as they come and go. So it's a nice balance, I find.
Yeah.
I avoid the hectic side of Nantucket, what it's become in the summer on Main Street.
Yeah.
Rarely go into town during the summer.
Right.
Spend a lot of time down on the wharves. I'm more a winter wharf rat because I love being down on the wharves and walking in town in the winter. And it's sort of a nice balance being out here in the summertime. And
it's amazing. I mean, I didn't know this about you, Helen. And it was a pleasure to come along with you and learn a little bit about this beautiful place that we don't take that much advantage
That's
of,
it.
do we?
You know,
More people should come out here.
it amazes me, the people that come to Nantucket and they think they've seen it when they've seen downtown or the beaches or whatever, and there's this whole world here. And people who live here year-round. I mean, you know, I think they really ought to first become members of the foundation so they can come on the interpretive walks that I do in the summer, get the maps, and come out and explore, find out about these properties. You know, it's a real Eden out here.